You picked that jerky treat because it looked like real meat, nothing fake, nothing cheap. That is exactly the treat category that has landed the most dogs in kidney failure over the last decade. It was never recalled off the shelf where you bought it, and it never smelled spoiled in the bag. That is the part that scares me most about it. And it is the reason I want to walk you through what is actually happening in your dog's body every time that treat hits the bowl, plus the two other kitchen items that carry the exact same risk without anyone ever warning you. I am a veterinarian. I have treated dogs for more than 20 years, and a kidney case tied to a treat like this is something I see in my clinic on a regular basis. Before we go further, tell me in the comments what your dog's name is and how old they are, because some of what I am about to say lands differently depending on their age. Out of everything I am about to walk you through, there is one fix that matters more than all the rest combined, the one that actually replaces that treat without your dog noticing the difference, and I am saving it for the end. If you have been handing out that treat for months, or a slice of grape off your plate because your dog has begged for it for years with no problem, I want to say something clearly before anything else. You did not do this because you were careless. You did it because it felt like the kind, natural choice, the treat that seemed better than the cheap stuff at the gas station, the one with the picture of real chicken on the front instead of a cartoon mascot. Maybe a friend or a groomer even recommended it to you as the healthier option, which only made the choice feel more responsible, not less. That instinct to reach for something that looks wholesome is exactly what a good pet parent does, and the fact that you are watching this video right now, asking whether it is actually safe, already puts you ahead of most owners who never think to check what is actually in the bag past the picture on the front. Here is the belief I need to break first, because it is the one doing all the damage quietly. A treat that looks like real meat or says natural, chicken, or grain-free across the front of the bag is not automatically safe just because it looks that way. Owners believe it because the packaging is built to say exactly those words: natural, single ingredient, wholesome, and because the dog's own enthusiasm for it feels like proof that it is fine. The truth is that dry jerky-style treats, especially the soft chicken, duck, or sweet potato jerky strips, have been linked for years to a real kidney condition, one where the tiny filtering structures in the kidney stop doing their job properly. And there is a second belief sitting right next to it that is just as wrong, that grapes and raisins are just fruit, so a small piece off your plate now and then cannot hurt. That is false, and it has nothing to do with the size of your dog. Your dog's kidneys spend all day filtering waste out of the blood while holding on to the water and nutrients the body actually needs. And they do that using tiny structures called tubules. Think of them as a set of strainers working around the clock. With repeated exposure to certain jerky-style treats, those strainers can stop catching what they are supposed to catch, so the body starts losing things it should be keeping, a pattern vets call Fanconi-like syndrome. Grapes and raisins hit a different way and much faster. Some compound inside the fruit, one we still have not fully identified, can trigger sudden, severe kidney damage within a day or two. And it does not matter whether your dog is 15 pounds or 80. Here's the sign that shows up first, and it is the one most owners read as a good thing instead of a warning. A dog getting a little thirsty after a walk or a hot afternoon is completely normal, and so is finishing a bowl after a long game of fetch. A dog that starts draining a full bowl 2 or 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and again at 2 in the morning, or one that empties it and paws at it for more, is telling you something different. If you have started refilling the water bowl more often than you used to without really noticing when that started, that alone is worth paying attention to, because it is one of the earliest, most reliable signs that the kidneys are under strain, long before anything else about the dog looks wrong. If you have never caught that sign in your own dog before, that is genuinely good news. And it means the two things we are about to cover matter even more, because they are what keeps you from ever seeing it. Before we get into the bowl itself, if this is helping you look at your dog's water bowl differently, hit subscribe. It costs nothing, and it means this information reaches more dogs before their owners find out the hard way, and a like helps that happen too. The next sign runs in the opposite direction from what most people expect, and it comes in two forms that look nothing alike. Urinating more than usual gets dismissed as just drinking more water because of the heat, and urinating less gets dismissed as a dog being lazy about asking to go outside. A dog asking to go out constantly, having accidents indoors in the middle of the night when that never happened before, or straining at the yard and producing barely anything at all. Both point in the same direction, and both deserve a same-day call to the vet rather than a wait-and-see approach, since either extreme means the kidneys are no longer managing water the way they should. Vomiting comes right alongside those two, and it rarely arrives completely alone. One vomiting episode after a dog eats grass in the yard or gulps down a meal too fast happens to healthy dogs all the time and means nothing on its own. Vomiting that repeats over the course of a day, especially paired with the thirst or urination change we just covered, or showing up close to a treat that included jerky, grapes, or raisins, is your dog's body actively trying to reject something it cannot process. That combination, not the vomiting alone, is what tells me it is not something to wait out overnight and hope it settles by morning. And the last one is the quietest of all, the one that gets missed the longest because on its own it looks like nothing at all. Skipping a single meal on a lazy day or napping an extra hour after a hard walk happens to every healthy dog and does not mean anything by itself. A dog that stops meeting you at the door, ignores food it normally loves, tucks away in a corner of the house it does not usually choose, and stays flat like that for more than a day is showing you a system-wide problem rather than a mood. The kidneys are one of the very first places I check when a dog comes into my clinic looking like that, especially alongside any of the other 3 signs we just walked through. This is where it stops being about one treat and starts being about how far this can actually go if nobody catches it. It starts small, a treat here and there, a dog that seems completely fine on the surface. Underneath, the kidneys start losing ground quietly, before any of the 4 signs we just covered ever show up, which is exactly why the changes inside the blood and urine usually arrive before any change in behavior does. Next comes the thirst and urination shift an owner actually notices, then the vomiting and the appetite dropping off as waste starts building up in the blood instead of leaving the body. Left unaddressed, this can progress to a dog that is severely dehydrated and unable to keep food down at all, a genuine emergency that needs hospitalization and fluids just to pull the numbers back into a safe range. None of that stays contained to the kidneys either. A dog losing nutrients through damaged tubules can lose muscle condition and energy over time, since the body is leaking things it should be keeping for itself. The dehydration that comes with constant urination pulls on the heart too, forcing it to work harder just to keep blood pressure stable. And a dog already fighting this kind of kidney stress handles any other illness, any sedation, any surgery with a much thinner safety margin than a healthy dog would, which is exactly why catching this early protects far more than the kidneys alone. I think about Bailey every time this topic comes up. She was a 6-year-old beagle who came into my clinic after 2 days of drinking nonstop and having accidents in the house, something her owner said had never happened once in her whole life. She had been getting chicken jerky strips several times a week for months, from a bag her owner genuinely believed was the healthy option on the shelf. Her blood work came back with her kidney values elevated, and once we took her off the jerky and gave her supportive care, those numbers came back down over the following weeks. Her owner keeps carrot and plain chicken in the fridge now instead, and Bailey has not had an accident in the house since. If you have already been giving that treat for years like Bailey's owner had, take a breath before you spiral into worry. Bailey's kidneys recovered because the damage was caught and the treat was removed. And that is true for a lot of dogs, not a rare exception. What matters most now is not what happened before this video. It is what you do with the bowl starting tonight. That is exactly where I want to start with you, because the first swap is sitting in your crisper drawer right now. Raw carrot is crunchy, low calorie, and gives your dog something to gnaw on instead of reaching for that jerky strip, with almost none of the calorie load that comes with processed treats. A small dog gets a coin-sized slice or two. A medium dog gets a few slices or a small whole baby carrot. And a large dog can handle a full carrot cut into pieces they can actually manage without choking on a whole chunk. Offer it a few times a week rather than leaving it out all day like a chew toy. And keep an eye on whether your dog chews it properly instead of swallowing chunks whole, especially with a dog that tends to gulp its food rather than take its time. The next one works the same way, but adds a little sweetness dogs go crazy for, and it comes with one rule: you cannot skip. Apple gives that same satisfying crunch, with fiber doing the work preservatives used to do in the treat bag, and it tends to win over the pickier dogs that walk away from a plain carrot slice. A small dog gets 1 or 2 thin slices, a medium dog gets about 1/4 of an apple's worth, and a large dog can have half an apple's worth. Core it first and take out every single seed, since apple seeds release a small amount of a cyanide-forming compound if a dog chews and digests them regularly over time. One seed swallowed by accident here or there is not an emergency and does not need a panic call to the clinic, but it should never become a daily habit in your house. Before the last swap, let me stop you from making the two mistakes I see most in the exam room. Owners often think a smaller jerky treat or a cheaper brand of the same style solves the problem, when the real risk sits in the drying process and the additives, not the size of the piece. And just as often, an owner gives all three of these swaps every single day, all at once, the moment they finish a video like this one, which is not caution. That is just trading one habit for a new one without thinking it through. Now here's the one I said I would come back to, the swap that matters more than the other two combined. Cooked plain lean meat is the closest direct replacement for jerky there is, because it is still meat, still exciting to your dog without the additives or the drying process behind the kidney cases we started this video with. Plain boiled or baked chicken, turkey or lean beef, nothing seasoned, no garlic or onion powder, no sauce of any kind. A small dog gets a piece about the size of your thumb tip. A medium dog gets something closer to a golf ball, and a large dog can have a piece closer to a small handful, torn into smaller bites so they cannot choke. 2 or 3 times a week is plenty as a treat, never as a meal on its own. If your dog turns his nose up at a plain piece of chicken after years of a heavily seasoned treat, that is normal, not a reason to give up on the swap. Cut it smaller than you think you need to, warm it slightly so the smell comes through more, and offer it right at the moment you would have handed over the jerky. Same routine, same hand, different treat. Most dogs come around within a week once the old option simply stops appearing in the house. For an older dog or one already diagnosed with any kidney concern, run these swaps by your vet first, since portion size and frequency may need to shrink further than what I just gave you for a healthy adult dog. This is the point where the safety net has to go around everything we have covered. Grapes and raisins in any amount are never appropriate for a dog and count as an emergency exposure rather than something you wait out overnight. Garlic, onion, and any seasoned or sauced version of that cooked meat are off the table completely. Keep it plain every time. Very salty or smoked jerky style treats and anything with added sugar or a preservative the label does not clearly explain should be limited or dropped altogether, especially if your dog already has a known kidney or heart issue. None of these 3 swaps reverse kidney damage that has already happened. They only lower the risk of it happening in the first place, which is exactly why a suspected grape or raisin ingestion or any of those 4 signs from earlier needs a same-day call to your vet rather than a waited-out approach at home. Investigations into jerky-style pet treats have logged thousands of illness reports and hundreds of deaths tied to these products over the years that inquiry has run. And in documented grape and raisin cases, kidney values rose regardless of how much fruit the dog actually ate, which is exactly why vets treat any exposure the same way, as an emergency rather than a judgment call based on quantity. The reassuring half of that same data is this. Dogs with the jerky-linked kidney condition usually improve once the treats are removed and the kidneys get support early, which means the swap you make tonight is not just prevention, it is protection for a kidney that may already be working harder than it should. Plenty of jerky-style treats get marketed with the same words: natural, grain-free, real meat, words that make an owner feel like they are doing better than the store brand, while some of them were manufactured with almost no oversight on how that meat was actually dried. Nobody in that supply chain ever answers for a dog that gets sick a year later, on the other side of the country, with no clear line back to the bag. That is not something your vet tells you at a routine checkup either, mostly because a 15-minute visit rarely leaves room for a conversation about where a treat came from, so it falls to the owner to make that call at the shelf. I am not telling you every jerky treat on the shelf right now is dangerous. I am telling you the label alone has never once proven safety, and a plain piece of cooked chicken from your own kitchen has never shown up in a kidney investigation. One last rule before you go put any of this into practice tonight. Do not introduce carrot, apple, and cooked meat all in the same day, even though each one is completely safe on its own, and none of them carry any real risk by themselves. A dog's stomach handles 1 new food at a time far better than 3 at once, And mixing new textures together in one sitting is a common, entirely avoidable cause of a rough night for both of you. The kind that has nothing to do with kidneys and everything to do with the gut that got overwhelmed. Start with one swap this week. Watch the stool and the energy for 2 or 3 days, then bring in the next one once things look normal. And once your dog knows all 3, rotate between them across the week so nothing gets overloaded and the diet stays varied instead of stuck on repeat. Tell me below, does your dog get jerky treats right now, and what is their name and age? If this changed how you look at that bag in your cabinet, subscribe so the next warning like this one reaches you before it reaches your dog, and share it with another owner who still thinks natural means safe. I have watched this exact swap protect a lot of kidneys over the years, and I would rather you make the change tonight than meet me the way Bailey's owner did. Go give your dog a scratch behind the ears and start with just one.